My study opens up with a story about Dontrell, a 19-year-old 10th grade student with a specific learning disability who was being served in the general education inclusion classroom setting for his educational needs. He was supposed to graduate with the 23-24 cohort. However, he was notified that he would not be permitted to return to school and ultimately meant that he contributed to the school's failure and dropout statistics. Dontrell's story provides an example of a social phenomenon experienced by Black male students with disabilities in U.S. urban schools. It demonstrates the poignant necessity of storytelling and its significant contribution to qualitative research. The research centers on Black male students with disabilities to shed light on their personal schooling experiences. The study is using narrative inquiry as a methodology to listen, heal, and exact change of practices and policies through storytelling. My identity as a Black woman, educator, doctoral student, anti-racist, and anti-ableist shapes my worldview. Born in a small town in Illinois, I do not have any memorable experiences of racism. Having been exposed to systems of oppression within U.S. educational systems, my perspective is based on my beliefs and my knowledge of my past experiences and my cultural background, which led me to what shapes my interpretation in recognizing this social phenomenon that I'm studying concerning Black male students with disabilities. My positionality as a critical constructivist, education researcher, and special education teacher significantly influences my research. This will help me to explore how I perceive Black male students with disabilities and discover what shapes and has shaped their worldview. This study is guided by the lens of radical critical schooling theory, a theoretical lens that combines the theories of intersectionality, discrit, and radical schooling. I will obtain approval from the IRBs of Georgia State and the school district. The participant recruitment process will be a collaborative with stakeholders based on the following criteria. Students identify as Black or African American, male, has a current IEP, and is being served in the general ed inclusion setting, and older than their peers in the classroom. The literature review examined the history of special education and educational access denial, which is racial and academic subjugation, through the lens of intersectionality, discrit, and radical schooling, to theorize radical critical schooling theory, which seeks to illuminate the role schools play in maintaining class stratification. Class strata function to target marginalized groups and maintain social order through cultural hegemony, hidden curricula, and cultures of power. It seeks to empower students through amplifying student voices, challenge power structures, advocate for student agency, and value students' identities as cultural assets to improve upon schooling practices, the political landscape, and the future life outcomes of Black male students with disabilities. This narrative inquiry research design will include purposeful convenience sampling and data collection methods from 3 semi-structured interviews and student written work samples as personal narrative artifacts. This study utilizes research puzzles, which are also research questions. The guiding questions are: what are the key stories or narratives that Black male students with disabilities share when they describe their learning experiences in high school ELA inclusion classrooms? And sub-questions pertaining to culturally responsive practices. And then, how can we better understand the learning experiences of Black male students with disabilities in ELA inclusion classrooms through their storytelling to reduce the likelihood of repeated retention in grades 9 through 10? These are the deficit narratives that are subjective and behavioral social constructions that have historically led to over-identification, over-representation, and disproportionality of Black male students in special ed programs. Here is my conceptual framework, visual. This concept of puzzling is a double entendre. The first meaning comes from my deep faith that believes that the different kinds of gifts, the unique strengths and needs of each Black male student with disabilities are pieces of the same spirit. And the second meaning comes from the challenge of narrative inquirers to connect the pieces to reveal a holistic narrative view of the key stories that Black male students with disabilities tell. RCST will absolve the blaming of students of color, solve problems, and rethink how race, class, ability, and education segregation position students within the U.S. educational system. Data sources and collection methods. As mentioned previously, I'm using semi-structured interviews using open-ended questions. The interviews will be audio recorded, and I'm also using handwritten notes. I will use an AI, Otter AI, to the data collection procedures provided will be the process of triangulation or crystallization by using multiple data sources, methods, theories, and participants as a saturated method. To address trustworthiness and credibility, I will search for disconfirming evidence or alternative explanations that emerge from the participants' stored experiences to avoid just disclosing only the stories that align with my assumptions or personal biases. I will engage in reflexivity throughout the ongoing process of recognizing how my position influences the research, and also the choice of data sources that will yield thick, rich descriptions and comprehensive and detailed data capturing the complexities of the social phenomena. For the analytic process, I will be using first cycle coding of narrative coding, second cycle pattern coding. I will also utilize member checking and peer debriefing with critical friends to enhance the accuracy of the narrative accounts, adding credibility and validity to the proposed research study. In thinking of ethics and IRB considerations, I'm thinking about the ethical tensions that may arise from the concept of the wording off track. So in this process, I've decided to change the language to students who are older than their peers in the ELA general ed classroom setting. I felt that myself as a researcher and a special education teacher, it may ease the tensions by building relationships and helping them to understand ways they can improve their academic success towards graduation.